Leah and Jacob, where he was wanted to marry Rachel, and their father, Lavan, s- did the old switcheroo, and Leah was ended up being married to him, and he didn't find out till the wedding night and or after the wedding night in some midrashim, like he didn't know till the morning. And I gathered a bunch of interesting midrashim about Leah and about the wedding night that I thought would be fun to read before we move on to the rivalry between the two sisters, which is quite heartbreaking in a way. And also that just to remind us that the tradition of availing the bride, putting the veil at the wedding, where the husband makes sure it's the right girl before they cover her face, comes from this story, comes from this thing. And there's so many interesting, there, customs and traditions that come out of some of these very, very early stories, like the story of Abraham sitting under his tent after he was circumcised with all the sides up, looking for guests, and the idea of Kabbalat Orchim, of welcoming guests and treating them with a great deal of respect, is sort of rooted in that story, for example. And there are other places where also, um, the in Orthodox tradition, brides and grooms celebrate for 7 days. We know they have seven blessings at the wedding, but they actually have 7 days of blessings, Sheva, brachot, each day in a different house. And that comes from the fact in this story that Jacob married Leah, and then 7 days later, he married Rachel. He married Rachel. And so from that, the rabbi said, you're supposed to celebrate 7 days. And among the Orthodox young couple, you don't go on your honeymoon right away. You basically are feted and honored and celebrated for 7 days. The wedding being the first one and in another 6 days. So that's that tradition as well. Yes, Panina.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I'm going to go back for a minute to the story of Abraham sitting by the opening of his tent.
Yeah.
The fact that it even mentioned the story, and the Haggadah says that the tent was open on four sides, all
Sides. Yeah.
four sides. So I think the whole idea is that he represented a different concept all of a sudden. He sits there and he is welcoming strangers or passers-by, because there was always caravans going, merchants passing by through the land. So the idea is that all of a sudden this hospitality was a new thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't mention it. So it's kind of like a controversy. I mean, an opposite of what the tribes used to do to one another. People would actually fight each other for the territory or for the games or whatever it is that they needed to survive. But here, he is actually giving it to them. If he's thirsty, if he's hungry, you don't have to fight for it. You don't have to kill for it. You are invited. I'm ready to share. I think this whole idea of the tent is very important. And otherwise, they would not even mention it.
Right. And by the way, for everyone, that is where the concept of the chuppah, the wedding chuppah, is from this idea of Abraham's tent
Open
being
tent.
open on four sides. It's like your first home, and it's your sacred space, but you're welcoming others into your space because it's open on all four sides. Wait, there was something else. Oh, yeah. This idea of hospitality also, um, is an Arab or an Islamic very important quality as well of
Yes.
welcoming guests. They are very much about this idea of welcoming guests. And I read, maybe I told you this class, but I'm going to repeat it. After there was that terrible shooting, there were these three yeshiva boys who were killed in Israel, and then some yeshiva boys went and killed an innocent 14-year-old Palestinian boy, and it was terrible in Israel. The mother of one of the Israeli boys went to the mother of the Palestinian boy to, offer condolences. And I remember they interviewed her and she said, well, I didn't want to see her, but she's a guest in my home and I have to let her come in and I have to welcome her because it's such a strong value. And so and then they were able to in some way bond over their losses. But the Muslim woman said, I have to let her in because we have to let honor guests. So it's so interesting how these ancient biblical stories, Leslie, we're just talking about how these ancient biblical stories led to some customs that we still practice today, like um, the veiling ceremony, because Jacob was duped and was given the wrong sister. Now at traditional wedding ceremonies, the groom comes and looks at the bride and goes, "Yeah, that's her," and then they veil her so that he's not getting the wrong wife. So anyway, but I found all these interesting stories about Leah. We don't really know a lot about Leah usually. She's kind of the rejected sister. And so I think I would be fun to read some stuff. So hopefully I'm getting a new computer, by the way,
You
with
gave up, huh?
I gave up completely. Okay, is this going to show? Oh my God. Okay, what is this? All right, hold on. Oh, how do I even open this now? Hannah, are you there? How do I share this?
There's a share button.
All right, let me go back to stop share. Let's start over. I know there's a share button. Wait, believe me. I can't wait to get rid of this. I have this Mac. I'm getting a PC. Okay, so here is Jacob's dream. And why isn't it opening?
You go to share,
Yes,
it doesn't.
The
it's
blue,
just,
yeah, the blue.
I can't expand it.
Well,
Hannah, are you there? She's on the other line somewhere. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Let me just,
but the picture of us is big enough.
I know, but all right, wait a minute. Let me do something else. Let me just put you down in a corner, get this thing here open. Okay, now I have this. Now, how do I get back to you? Oh my God, I just can't wait to be done with
Well,
this.
we see you.
Yeah, but I don't see you at all. All right.
Okay.
Okay, wait, now.
Maybe switch.
Hold
Well,
on.
the buttons are down there.
Believe me.
You try. Okay.
All right, hold on. Hannah.
Where it says share screen.
Yes, okay. I touch share screen. Here it says Jacob's dream, but when I do this, it doesn't open.
Oh,
Jane, you are share screening. Well, it doesn't. All right, hold on a second. Let me just try one more thing. Here we go. All right, you know what? I can't see you, but you can see this, right?
No,
You
now we
can't.
I
can't.
can see you.
we just
You
see you. We
see-
don't see the writing.
Okay, I have to call Hannah. She's on another line and
Well,
tell her to get back on here and do this because I don't know what to do.
can't we just read it out loud?
Yeah. Why don't you just read it?
I read it?
Yes.
Oh,
You read it, we'll listen.
that's ridiculous. Wait,
Well,
let me try.
temporarily.
Let me just try one more thing.
Okay.
Share. It says sign in to share your document.
You shouldn't. No, you don't have to do.
I
You shouldn't
hate
have to do
this
that.
stupid. Oh my God.
So sign in.
Wait, I lost you now.
No, here.
Oh my, no, but I can't.
Okay, we can hear
Back to
you though.
meeting, back to meeting. All right, let me put you here. Can I move you here? I'll put you in this smaller. Okay, now I'm going to do this. No, that doesn't, you don't see it, right?
Nope.
No,
Oh my,
we still have the gallery.
hold on.
But can you read it though?
Yeah, I'm going to try one more thing because I
Just read it, and that's it.
Yep.
oh, wait, share. No, it's not even there. Oh my God. All right, I'll read it. This is really depressing. Wait, hold on.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
It's not, that's why I'm getting rid of this.
We're okay.
All right, hold on. Now I can't even. Oh my God.
Oh, now we
There it
see it.
is.
Now we see it.
Okay, now
Got
you see it, but that's not the one. But let me see if I can get the one.
Scroll up, maybe.
File. No, it's a different file.
Oh.
It's recent. Recent. Oh my God. Jacob's dreaming, Rachel. Do you see it now?
Yes.
We see a bit of it.
Yeah, quarter of it.
Do you see it now? Yes.
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 Yay.
Oh my God. This by next week, hopefully, we'll be done.
Yeah, but now you know what to do.
I have no idea what I did. I just
Yeah,
clicked
that's
8,000
it.
things till something showed up.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. Cindy, why don't you read?
Leah is depicted in the Torah as the woman who was married to Jacob against his will and as the sister of the beloved and beautiful Rachel. The rabbis compared Leah and Rachel. Both were equivalent in beauty. I never heard that. And in their erect stature. However, Leah's eyes were weak from crying, for she feared that she would have to be married to the wicked Esau. The rabbis found this weeping to be praiseworthy and declared that by merit of her prayers, this fate was set aside and she was married to Jacob.
Okay, so she prayed that she wouldn't have to marry Esau, that, now we read about Esau. He didn't seem that horrible, but the rabbis have decided because he's the ancestor of Rome and all the Roman oppression, that he was a horrible guy, and we'll see more description of him. And that, so Rebecca and Laban, or let's call him Lavan, were brother and sister. And they each had two children. She had two sons and he had two daughters. And so there's this idea that they communicated and said, okay, we'll marry our children together. You'll marry, the older will marry the older, Leah will marry Esau, and the younger will marry the younger, and Rachel will marry Jacob. And so when Leah found this out, she was crying because no, I don't want to marry him. And her eyes became really weak, red, whatever, who knows? You'll see, they say her eyelashes fell off because she was crying so long. And because she prayed, the decree was set aside. In other words, God, had an instrument in this. And yeah.
That's all midrash, right? It's not written
All
in
midrash.
Okay.
Yeah, we read the text. Okay, so a little more, Cindy.
The rabbis ascribed Jacob's antagonism to Leah to the stratagem by which she was married to him, an act that reminded him of his own act of deception when he stole the birthright.
Okay, so what does that mean? That she reminded him of his own deception of his brother. The way he was deceived reminded him of how he deceived. She pretended to be Rachel like he pretended to be Esau to get the blessing. So she was like a bad reminder. So looking at her, being married to her, just reminded him of what he did, and he didn't like it. The rabbis say he didn't like that reminder. Okay, Lori, why don't you read?
Am I starting with Jacob did not divorce her?
Yes.
Because she bore him children, 6 sons and a daughter. The tribes of Levi and Judah, the 2 tribes that were superior to all the rest, descended from her.
Well, what I find interesting in that sentence is that there was divorce already.
Yeah.
But a long time later, he still had sex with her.
Right.
So he did lay with her as his wife.
He didn't divorce her.
Right, and he did. Well, she had 7 children, so we're talking
Exactly.
about
You're
15
talking
years
about
or
the
whatever.
word divorce
Yeah, but I'm
And,
just,
Or
showing up.
divorce.
just
and then
that there's, yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I have a separate question. The tribes of Levi and Judah, the two tribes that were superior to all the rest. What I don't understand hierarchy. We're supposed to all be kind of good people here,
Okay,
right?
so the Levites did not have any portion of the land. They are the tribe that had took care of the temple. They were the Levites, and the Kohanim, or the priests, were also part of the Levite tribe, because Moses and Aaron were from the Levite tribe, and their tribe was like, you're not going to have any land. You're going to have cities all over the country, and you're going to tend to all the sacrifices and running the temple, and the people will support you. They will give tithes, and they will give you their portions of whatever they offer so that you can live. But their job, they had a job that was separate from anyone else's. So in that way, they were considered superior, because they were the keepers of the temple and of the sacrifices. Judah, first of all, in the story of Joseph, which I hope we'll get to, he was the one who tried to save his brother. But we are all descended from Judah. That's why we're called Jews. All the other tribes disappeared, and we're the only tribe that survived. And Judah in Hebrew is Yehudah, and a Jew is a Yehudi, which is a singular, and Jews is Yehudim. So the Yehudim are Judahites, literally. We're from Judah. So that's why they say that. So we are all equal, but there's no one else but Jews. So that's what that means. And interestingly enough, the word Judah comes from Todah, which means thank you or gratitude. So in our actual name of us as a people is the word expressing thanks or gratitude. Is that helpful?
Very actually.
Okay.
Actually, but Rabbi,
Yeah.
I think you were reacting to the word divorce, that there was a concept of divorce.
Yeah, that's earlier. Exactly. I was saying it's interesting that the rabbis, of course, when the rabbis were writing this, it was 2000,
Yeah.
years after it happened.
Right.
But, and then there was a whole thing of divorce, but he didn't send her away. I didn't even know. I'm not even sure you could I guess you could send her away, but there would be no reason. But anyway, she gave him the most children, so he wasn't going to send.
But it says he did not divorce her because she bore him all these children. So like it seems to me that he was deceived immediately. He obviously figured that one out right away. If he was going to divorce her or send her away, wouldn't he have done it immediately? Instead, they're sort of talking, well, 15 years later, he
No, 1 year
played with her,
later,
they had
9 months,
relations, they lived
9 months.
together, they.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is after the fact, but you mean divorce her immediately? There's the implication in the Midrash that Rachel, because everybody is portrayed as good in these stories, that Rachel collaborated with the deceit and said, I didn't feel comfortable that you would marry me without my older sister being married. So he also, she may he may have she may not have married him, or he may have felt stuck because he was trying to please the wife that he loved, and she was okay with it for a while. Then, after Leah had all these children and Rachel had none, it became a big issue, as we're going to find out. Okay, so continue, Lori. The rabbis are lavish.
The rabbis are lavish in their praise of Leah. She was like the rafter of a house on which the entire world rests. She was a prophet, and the name she gave her sons allude to each tribe's future.
Which we'll see, because they tell them. I don't know about they really love her. And I think they love her, and it's interesting because she's not considered a beauty. And we can talk about the power, the power of beauty and how it's mentioned a lot, but in this case it isn't. Let's just finish this up, Nina, and I'll call you. The
You want me to
Midrash
continue?
Yeah.
Okay. The Midrash asserts that from the day that God created this world, he was not praised by anyone until Leah came and said, this time I will praise the Lord.
And that's when she said, I'm naming my son Judah, Todah, meaning thank you. So she was the first one to give thanks, they're saying. And so that made her very special in God's eyes.
This act was a positive example for her offspring who learned from it, followed in her ways, and also praised the Lord.
So this idea of praising God as opposed to asking God for something, because all before everybody's asking God for things. This was Leah. I mean, the women actually have some pretty powerful things, because we know that Hannah, centuries later, is the first one to literally created prayer in place of sacrifice, and she became a role model for that. Pnina, you wanted to say something?
The way that I look at it is they were sisters. The story tells us that when he married her already, she was a crier before. And because she was the eldest, he gave the father or the brother thought that it would be right for her to go first.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you would marry the younger one and the other one, the older one stays behind, it's like you're labeling her like not worthy. So he married both of them, yes. But then you have to also remember that Rachel died really young when she gave the birth to Benjamin.
Right.
So who raised all of them? Leah did. So what happens
Leah
now?
and the others, but yes, Leah was the main wife. You're
That's
absolutely
what it is. So the thing is, I think Yehuda, that you're tying it with the word to be Jewish, Yehudi, I think the values were actually taught to those kids from Leah, because Rachel died very young.
I think you're right. That's good.
She raised them. And that's why even the son, Yehuda, was the first in line from the beginning. When we recite the tribes, you start with Yehuda. Yehuda, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, blah, blah, blah.
Even though Reuven was the oldest.
Exactly. But you still call the whole section of this country Judea. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So, and when it was divided into, it was Yehuda Israel, which was not even one of the tribes' name.
I know.
It's like
Okay.
God
I want to move on. Okay.
Right.
Leslie. Leah's weak eyes.
Leah's weak eyes. In Genesis 29:17 states, Leah had weak, rakot, literally soft eyes. The unclear meaning of the adjective rakot provided an opportunity for various rabbinic expositions. According to one interpretation, this description was given in praise of Leah, since the Torah does not speak disparagingly of the righteous. Consequently, the word rakot is to be derived from arukot,
right?
Since God gave Leah gifts that continued for all time, the high priesthood, the throne, and the anointing oil.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're saying arukot, rach means soft, aroch means long, and they're saying God gave her gifts that lasted forever, very long, always, meaning her children, the Levites, the king, which comes from Judah, and I guess the anointing oil as well. Okay, go ahead. One more. Let's just do a few of them, Pnina, first.
I just want to say the word rach, when they say soft, that means kind-hearted. When you say, oh, rach means he's kind-hearted.
Right.
So her eyes were rakot doesn't mean that they were bad. It means that she was soft-hearted.
She could have had gentle eyes.
Exactly.
Okay, continue.
According to another
exegesis, that means an interpretation.
I've heard the word before. Anyway, Leah's eyes were actually soft from weeping. This is not understood as disparagement, but rather as praise. Pnina said. At the crossroads, she would hear people say, Rebecca has 2 sons and Laban has 2 daughters, the older girl for the older boy, the younger girl for the younger boy. According to another exposition, this was not merely what people said, rather, Rebecca and Laban sent letters to each other, settling among themselves that Esau would marry Leah, while Jacob would take Rachel as a wife. Leah would ask, what does the older one do? They told her, he is an evil person. Wonderful. Here's your husband, girl. Highway robber. She continued to ask, what does the younger one do? She was told that he was a mild man who stayed in camp. Leah would cry until her eyelashes dropped.
Right. So this is how she ruined her eyes by being, but that they say he's an evil man, a highway robber. Where does that even come from? There's nowhere in the text.
It's not from the Torah.
It's not from the Torah.
Interpretation, and it's terrible.
Right. Okay, the last one. Keep going.
Accordingly, her weak eyes teach of Leah's good traits, that she did not want to be married to Esau. Another exposition has her weeping and saying, "May it be his will that my lot not fall in the portion of the wicked Esau." And her prayer was, oh, these
Eff-
words,
Efficacious.
efficacious in saving her from this fate.
So, this is like she was such a good person that she didn't want to be married to an evil person. And so her prayer,
Evil.
averted the decree, so to speak. But that she knew and that they say he's an evil person, a highway robber. These are the rabbis talking about Esau, centuries later, when, as I said, they ascribed him because his name was one of his names was Adom, which means red because he was a red hairy guy, and that was also a name for Rome. Later they said, oh well, he had to be, if they descend from him, he had to be, an evil person.
I mean,
Okay.
who would tell her, oh, your betrothed is an evil guy? Or did she just sort of know this by reputation?
Probably reputation or whatever. I don't think her father told her that, but
She must have known him. They were first cousins, right?
don't forget they lived in different countries.
Right. Okay.
He lived in Canaan and they lived in Haran, which was Iraq. So they were in Iraq
Okay.
and she was in.
I-
Okay, Cindy.
When we recite the matriarchs, why do we say Rachel before Leah when Leah was the older sister and should
Okay.
come first?
Now
And
in
we're
the
not.
Orthodox Siddur, we don't. It's Leah v'Rachel. I don't know why the Reform one changed the order. But if you look at the Orthodox, you're talking about in the Amida, right?
Right.
Yes,
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak,
yeah.
Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka. It's Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel. I've seen it in many Sidurim,
Not
but
in ours.
not in ours. I don't know. I guess it's a good question, and you would have to ask the editors of the book what made them decide to make her. Maybe because I don't know.
I mean,
It's-
if it's because she was the favored wife, that's horrible.
I agree. I don't know, but she was the mother of Joseph. And we don't even mention Joseph actually. So okay, so I don't know, but I know I've noticed it, and I thought I wonder why they do that. I've thought about that myself. Okay, so Cindy, did you read?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Who Merle, are you there?
Okay, so am I starting with according?
Marriage by deception.
Okay, according to the one,
Exegetical.
yeah, that one, tradition, Jacob did not prefer Rachel to Leah from the outset. He asked to marry Rachel because she knew that Leah was intended to Esau.
Okay, so this is very interesting because that he, even though the Torah says he burst into tears, kissed her the minute he met her, I'm talking about Rachel, was so strong that he was able to lift up the rock that usually, took multiple shepherds to take off the cover of the well because, his adrenaline was so strong. Even so, the Rebbes decided that he didn't do that. And what did he say? Go ahead, Merle.
He thought to himself, when I stole the blessings, Esau sought to kill me. Now, when I take his intended wife, he will leave
Mahalat. Now, if we
Mahalat,
remember at the daughter of Ishmael, if we
the
remember,
daughter of Ishmael, who he had married, and he will
wait a
come
minute,
to.
just a sec. I just want to remind everyone that at the very end, when Jacob ran away, Esau had heard that his parents were very unhappy that he was married to Canaanite wives, and he took Mahalat, which was his cousin also, who was the daughter of Ishmael, because Ishmael would have been his uncle through his father Isaac, because Isaac and Ishmael were half brothers. And so he married Mahalat. And now Jacob is saying, I already took his blessing. Now I'm going to take his intended. So continue, Merle. I just wanted to remind people.
Daughter of Ishmael, whom he had married, and he will come to me and say, was it not enough for you that you took my birthright and my blessing? You have also taken my intended.
Okay.
Jacob therefore Jacob therefore asked Laban to give him Rachel's hand in matrimony. Laban also saw that Esau had married Mahalath, and he worried about Leah's marriage. Consequently, he decided to immediately give Jacob his elder daughter.
Okay, so why does this not make sense?
It does not make sense. You're right.
Why doesn't it?
Um,
Because
all,
they
this is
all
the-
had multiple wives. What's
Yeah.
the problem?
well,
I guess my question is did they all know who their wives were? They had so many.
Yeah, they knew. But I'm just saying that. So what if he was married to Mahalath? Why couldn't he marry Leah too? I mean, the Jacob ends up having 4 wives. And when Esau married Mahalath, he already had 2 Canaanite wives. So it's not logical. This is not logical at all.
No.
So okay, so one more.
Rabbi.
Oh wait, just a second, Lori.
I'm just wondering, was the idea of marrying Mahalath that now that if he married his first cousin, who was a Jew, who was part of.
Wait, you're talking about Mahalath or Leah?
I'm talking about Mahalath.
Okay.
Would Leah then become, if he married Leah later?
Yeah.
Would that mean that she would be the first wife in terms of priority in his household?
Maybe because she was
a Jewess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they were Jewesses.
Well,
I don't even know if they weren't really monotheists, but just that he was, she was related to, I don't know, because she was related to his mother and Mahalath was related through the father.
Oh.
So I'm not sure actually, but I don't know that being married to Mahalath would have been a reason not to marry Leah. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of it in those terms. I was actually thinking about looking at how harems had,
Yeah, the newest one, I don't know.
Or the preferred one, or the one with the highest authority in the harem.
I would think Leah would be the highest one, but I'm not sure. Okay. One more, Merle. This exposition,
which is based on the juxtaposition of the marriage of Esau to Mahalath and Laban's act of deceit, reflects the above tradition that the parents had already agreed that Esau would marry Leah and Jacob, Rachel.
And Jacob, Rachel.
Oh, and Jacob and Rachel.
To Rachel.
Jacob kept to his disagreement, but Laban feared that it would not be honored because of Esau's marriage to Mahalath.
Which makes no sense.
Right.
Because he could have more than one wife, and they all had more than one wife. So rabbis, you're like not remembering. This is, these rabbis, sometimes they judge things by the time that they're living in as opposed to the time that existed. Okay, Penina, I want you to read.
Okay, can I just say something?
Yes.
Most of the things that the rabbi assumed, actually, when it came to the real findings, that they built kind of like momentums to them, like the tomb of Rachel that we know till today where it is, and people go to visit it and stuff. I think it's because it survived the times. A lot of things you couldn't tell what was there unless you found archaeological findings or archaeological writings or pictures. So we are guessing, and I always say that I don't value if questions. There is no such a thing. If it's us, not them. So again, I'm saying that if there was no validation by some kind of archaeology or something on paper, like we read the Bible today with whatever is there, we are only assuming and we're trying to guess stuff that really, is that really that important today? You have to remember that only in the 14th, I think, century, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gershon sent a letter that allowed the Jews to marry only one wife. And when the Yemenites came to Israel, they came with more than one wife. And we are talking about the 20th century.
Exactly.
Or the 19th century. So what, I mean, we are only guessing, and the if questions are really not that important and that valid. The
No.
question is, what do we have as this whole era? We have that there was a division, there was a Judea, there was Israel.
Okay, no, I don't want to go into that. We're not
Yeah,
going,
and
it has
what I'm
nothing to
trying
do
to
with
tell
this
you, I'm not
story.
going into history today.
No,
I'm
I
just
know,
telling
I know.
you again, facts. There is no facts.
No, that's
we would
midrash.
like to
Midrash
think.
are never facts. Midrash
Right.
are just lessons, teachings, and other things. Okay, so here, why don't you read? According to another tradition,
According to another
exegetical
exegetical tradition, I don't even know what the word
it
exegetical.
means like a commentary, another
Okay.
explanation.
Okay. Laban set Rachel in a
Palanquin.
palanquin and
Okay.
extinguished the lamps.
Okay, hold on. A palanquin
When
is like it's what that men would hold on their shoulders and the women would sit above, like kind of a wagon with no wheels or a beautiful bed or a beautiful chair, that she would sit in the chair and there would just be poles that men would carry on their four men, one, two in the back, two in the front, and they would carry her. So that's a palanquin, just so you know.
We see them on the elephant in India where they put
No,
their
because it's, well, maybe that's called, but I think about the only place I actually ever saw one, I went to Rome and the Pope was there. And
yeah,
this is like in
yeah.
the 70s or 80s, and they were carrying him out on a palanquin. So
Okay.
that was now they have him in a bulletproof something because anyway, go ahead.
Okay, he then took Rachel out with his own hand and put Leah in her place. Okay.
Oh, but he extinguished the lamps. He did it in the dark.
in the dark.
Okay.
Jacob asked then, why are you extinguishing the lamps? They answered, what do you think? That we are disgraceful like you? That we are
Licentious.
licentious
It means like
you?
sexually corrupt.
To
like-
engage in relations by the light of a lamp?
So
All that night.
wait. So they're saying, what do you think? We have sex with lights on? That's disgusting. We have the sex in the dark. That is what they're saying. Licentious means, very sexually deprived or something. So he said, why are you turning off the lights? What do you think? We have sex with the lights on? Like you people? So this is very funny. And I don't know where they get this from, I mean, maybe Rome at the time or whatever, but okay, continue.
All that night he called her Rachel, and she answered him. In the morning there was Leah. He told her, what is this? You are a deceiver, the daughter of a deceiver. Oh,
So
yeah.
all night he was saying, oh, my darling Rachel, 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 and she was answering him. And then in the morning when the dawn came, he said, you're Leah. And what are you, a deceiver? Okay, now listen to this answer.
And really, he wouldn't be able to tell.
Well, I mean, they didn't have any touch or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter, does it?
No. But I get literal.
I think people don't always know you could not know if anyone was in the dark. There's actually a wonderful short story by Isaac Bashevis Singer about this. It's called Tabala and Her Demon, and it's about this young widow who's very lonely and this poor scribe who's in love with her. There's no way he can get to her. So he comes to her at night in the dark and he says, I'm a demon and I'm having sex with you. And it's fantastic sex. And this is Isaac Bish, and this is all in Yiddish, in a shtetl. And he's having sex with her every night. And she thinks she's having sex with a demon. And then she finds out it's like this schlub from across the street or whatever. It's such a great story. But she had no idea.
They also have the
Quiet.
ticket. So, they can do whatever they want.
They're in a tent. It's dark. I don't know. Black. Could be.
Okay. She retorted, and is there a scribe, teacher without pupils? Did not your father call you Esau? And you answered him? You too
Ooh.
called me Rachel, and I answered you.
Oh
That's-
my God.
That's dirty pool.
Right. Because remember his father said, who are you? And he said, I'm Esau.
Right.
She said,
But
so,
maybe he felt sorry for her too.
well, she said, is there a teacher without pupils? I learned it from you,
Yeah.
buddy. I watched what you did and I learned to do this from you, to pretend just like you did.
That's
so
really
you see that
bad.
Jacob, even though a lot of the interpretation is, oh, this was meant to be that God, chose the younger to supersede the older. Jacob suffers for this deception for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
In many ways. He never gets past it. All kinds of, from now on, pretty soon life goes downhill for him forever. So, okay.
I lost respect to this guy a long time ago because he didn't do it once. He did it twice. When he
Right.
bought from him the rights for the to be the firstborn, when he
Right.
fed him the red
stew.
lentil soup.
The-
Yeah. So he didn't, it wasn't just the mother. He was like totally into deceiving. So
Right.
maybe that's what the rabbis wants to show here.
Okay. So read one more, Penina.
Okay. This midrash shows the parallelism in the biblical narrative between Laban's deception of Jacob and Jacob's tricking of his father. With the exchange of the woman, Jacob was punished measure for measure for the act of deceit that he committed. The midrash also reveals the reason for Jacob's enmity towards Leah, who reminded him of a past that he perhaps would have preferred to forget.
Yes.
I can see that.
Yeah. Okay. Diane, do you want to read?
Sure. Jacob began to work for 7 years, and after the 7 years, he held a banquet for 7 days and married Leah. He added another 7 days of feasting and rejoicing, and then married Rachel. Okay. The rabbis learned from this that 7 days of feasting are to be conducted for a bride and a groom.
Well, that's what I told you about, that tradition that there are 7 days after, from the wedding, for bride and groom. And I mean, I've seen the couples, oh, tonight we're going to this family and tomorrow night we're going to that house, and they're running around. It's got to be so exhausting.
They have seven, Sheva Seudot.
Exactly.
Seven meals at the different rabbis' houses, not only one.
Okay, continue, Diane.
One midrash maintains that Rachel and Leah were married to Jacob when each was 22 years old, since they were, I didn't know they were twins.
Of course they were twins. Yeah.
I had never heard that they were twins until this midrash. It doesn't say they're twins.
They were sisters, I thought.
They said they were sisters and that Leah was the
oldest. That the sisters were twins. Oh, okay. I thought they were okay.
Esau was older by a few minutes.
Right.
So that would be the same, but they were twins, they're saying too, but I don't know how they get this stuff. Okay. Now
they said that the baby Esau was holding on to Jacob's heel.
No, I'm talking
the other
about
way around.
Rachel and Leah being twins.
Oh.
I never saw that before. So, but I love these rabbis. They have great stories. Okay, Cindy.
And the Lord,
Yeah.
and the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb. That's jumping.
No, that's okay. So no.
Oh, okay, because she had all those kids.
They got, well, not yet. This is now when they talk about it. So,
but was she ever infertile or have an issue?
No, but Rachel was. But Leah got pregnant right away. This is a quote from the Torah.
Okay.
Okay.
The rabbis tell of Leah's unhappiness. Jacob was cognizant of her acts of deception and wanted to divorce her. She was unloved not only by her husband, everyone sneered at her. Sea voyagers would sneer at her. Those traveling on the roads would sneer at her, and even working women would sneer at her. All would say, "This Leah, what she hides is not as what she reveals. She appears righteous, but she is not such a one. If she were righteous, would she have defrauded her sister?" So was it her idea or Laban's idea?
Oh, it was her father's idea, but this is again another story. The rabbis are looking at, why did God give Leah so many children? And this is what the outside world saw, not what not what the truth was, that her father did it or that she was crying so hard that God granted her not to have to marry Esau or whatever. But the outside world saw this. How they knew about it, we don't know. how did the sea merchants know about it and all this stuff? I love it. But they're basically saying everybody was talking about Leah and saying that, oh, she looks like she's such a religious, righteous woman, but she deceived and stole her sister's husband, is what they're saying, or did it first. So continue.
When God sees a person bent over in dejection, he gives him a hand and raises him up, as it is said. The Lord supports all who stumble and makes all who are bent stand straight.
Go ahead.
When God saw that Leah was unloved, he said, how shall I make her beloved of her husband? Now I give her children first, so that her husband will love her, and thus I make her stand straight.
Go ahead.
Another tradition has God saying, now I give Leah children so that she will be more beloved than Rachel.
And one more.
When Jacob saw that God had remembered Leah with children, he said, will I divorce the mother of these?
Okay, so here's this whole idea about this unloved woman and that God cares about that, which is so interesting to me. I mean, Rachel, she's beautiful, she's loved. Right now, she's doing fine. And that God cares about the unloved and not as beautiful woman must have been very comforting to women through the ages who weren't perfect and desired and whatever, and a very compassionate idea. And also, the rabbis seem to be valuing, righteousness, piety, goodness more than beauty. And if you look in the book of, I was just looking at it, the book of Proverbs, Proverb 30 or 31 is a woman of valor who can find her. And hold on, I was just looking at it. They say at the end of that, hold on. Charm is deceitful and beauty vain. This is in the text. But a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds shall speak her praise. So charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. That's in the book of Proverbs. And so I think that's referring to Leah, perhaps, or the rabbi's values of, yet that's the rabbis 2,000 years later, okay? But if you look at the text of the Tanakh, of the Bible and the Torah, all the heroes are beautiful and handsome, and all the women are beautiful. And it's always noted how beautiful they were. King David is beautiful, and Rachel's beautiful, and others. And so it's interesting that the rabbis, in a time of Roman excess of physicality, and in Greek times where physical beauty was, really emphasized in every way, the body, people in the Greek times exercised in the nude, their bodies were their temples, turned away from that and went to like the inner values of righteousness and goodness, which as Jews we still sort of prize today. Even though we love beauty, we still prize, righteousness, kindness, and all those other qualities. So I think it's interesting that Leah is kind of the first one. Any comments about that?
I have a question. I
Yeah.
missed the part about during the first event when Leah was together with Jacob. Where was Rebecca? What was she screaming and yelling? Get off
Wait,
my—
Rachel, the sister, you mean, Rachel?
Yeah, right. Where was she? She wasn't causing a scene and saying you're messing with my intended.
Okay, so if we think about daughters and fathers in ancient world, really, if the father said this is happening, you said, okay, you had no choice. She could have been unhappy. There's one
Not today.
not today. Well, not today in California, but I'm sure there are even cultures in this country and certainly around the world where the father says, this is who you're marrying, this is what you're doing, and I don't want to hear about it.
They don't talk about her crying and hysterical and—
No, they don't. And in fact, in one midrash, and I guess it's not here, I read that Rachel was fine with it because she really wanted her sister to go first, and that she hid under the bed and used her voice so that Jacob thought it was her that
Oh,
she answered. Leah was
I like that better.
Yeah, so it wasn't Leia who was, well, she was
so they were in
deceptive too,
collusion.
but
Yeah.
that
they
she
were
was
both
in
They were-
collusion.
They
That
were
she,
cahoots together.
that she said, okay, and then he'll marry me too. I mean, I know I'll get him to marry me, but we'll be wives-in-law,
I like that interpretation
sister
better.
wives. Yes, there is that one as well that but we'll see that. I mean, this father had complete control, I think, of his daughters and their servants. They have two servants that Jacob ends up marrying as well. And we're either going to read it today or next week because they were in a competition and those girls had no choice. And some say they were servants or slaves, but he was their father as well and had slept with his slave women. And these girls then were servants to his daughters. There's a real hierarchy of mistreatment as opposed to the Hebrew wives seem to have a lot more power. Sarah had a lot of power. Rebecca has a ton of power. You know what I mean? Now we're looking at Rachel and Leah and seeing what they don't seem to have as much power. Okay, so.
Can I just say one word?
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, I think, remember the story of Ruth?
Yes.
Actually, he slept with her before when he woke
Yes,
up.
he did.
Yeah.
But she seduced him. She seduced him.
She slept by his feet.
Yeah, but the
And then
word
when he
feet.
woke up, there she was.
Yeah,
What I'm
but
saying,
feet, I want to say, Penina, feet, it was a metaphor for penis. She uncovered his feet, they say. She uncovered.
whatever. The
Yeah.
thing is that I think the act itself kind of like binded the people. I don't think the ceremony at the time, there was no ceremony, literally. They were
Right.
kind of like, it was like they left a dowry. They were getting a dowry. They gave it to the husband. One of them took her gods with her, the statues or
Yeah,
whatever.
we're going to get there. But you're
Yeah.
right. In the
It's
Torah,
like, I don't think that there was really a ceremony. I think it
No.
was more like a business transaction.
and also sealing
The
the
deal
deal
was
was
sealed by the act. That's it.
the act. Sex, when you had sex, you were married.
That's it.
Exactly. Or,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, Lori, according to another exegetical approach.
According to another I'm going to say this word out, pronounce it right if it kills me. According to another exegetical approach, however, God did not give Leah children because of her unhappiness, but because of her merits. He saw that Leah was unloved because Esau's actions were hateful to her, and she was willing to deceive Jacob in order to be married to him and thereby be saved from Esau. According
God accordingly opened her womb.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay.
Okay. So now, all right. So that's as far as we got. We have 4 more minutes, so we can just read. This is now the Torah. We're back to what happened after the wedding and after all of that. So I just want to talk about this thing because I find it so interesting. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister and she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I shall die." Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Oh my God. What do we think about, and I'm going to stop there because we're going to continue, next time. But let me do this thing here. Come on. How do I make this bigger now? I want to all right, whatever. I can't even figure out how to do this right now, but you're all on, even though Lori in mine is bigger. What do we think about Jacob's response?
An asshole.
I mean, yes. And remember how, first of all, Isaac, it says Isaac prayed to God, Rebecca, if you remember the text, when Rebecca was barren, Isaac prayed to God for her, to give her a child. And here, Jacob, she comes to him and she's crying, and her sisters had at this point 4 children already. And he says, well, what is it my fault and whatever? And so I don't know why we revere him so much, as a character. He's very flawed and very unsympathetic. And this is supposed to be the woman he loved. This is supposed to be the love of his life. And he's very cruel to her. And this is, and her unhappiness just sort of permeates through most of the rest of the story about her until she dies in childbirth. And she actually dies in childbirth because of a
Who
curse.
was that?
What?
Oh,
What? You heard something?
sorry, no, that's garbage day, and there was a big boom outside.
Oh.
And I thought something happened close by, but I'm
Oh,
going to turn off my voice thing.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. We don't hear it. We don't hear it, Penina. Anyway, so Jacob, I don't even know what to make of him. Like, we're considered the children of Israel. He's Israel. So do you think that it's valuable that he's so flawed, or is it a problem for you that he's so flawed? Or is this just to show us that we're all human beings and that we can be redeemed and that we can, improve, or that suffering is a result of our own behavior, some of it, because he certainly ends up suffering horribly. When Joseph is sold, and that was his favorite, and Rachel dying young and all that. And yet he's kind of an arrogant young man. Not that young, he's 40. So any comments about that before we end for today?
What
Penina?
about Rachel's suffering?
Yes, Rachel's, I mean, he causes her, his cruelty is very
But
he's
yet she dies young.
Well,
she does die young, but we'll read about it. He cursed her accidentally, because later on, when they leave to go back to Canaan, Rachel steals the household gods, the idols, to take with her. And then Laban comes running out and saying, somebody stole the idols. And Jacob says, that's not true. We don't worship idols. And if you find the idols on anyone, you can kill them or they're going to die.
right.
And it's Rachel who has stolen them. And she's sitting on them on her camel, or a palanquin or whatever. And when her father comes to her, this is in the Torah, she says, I can't get up because I have my period. And he basically backs away and goes, okay, forget it, because men have a horror of women's, menstrual blood and all that kind of stuff. But, it is sad. She is this. And also, isn't there kind of a message that beauty is not going to redeem you or give you a better life? That it seems like the other woman had a better life, Leah. So there's so many thoughts about this. Okay, the last word, Penina, and then we're going. Do you have something you want to say?
I think the word Yaakov, it means that the guy was not really, he was a follower, not only because he followed his brother in the womb. I think he was somebody that followed whatever it is that was convenient for him at the time.
I think you're right.
Follows his mother idea. He follows later on his struggle with the angel. So he follows wherever it is that at the moment, that's what the angel told him to be or to do. He's always struggling with not only by him, about somebody else or with somebody else in order to come to some kind of a decision. I think his name tells you all.
Right.
He wasn't an original. He was a follower. Things that happened gave him the opportunity.
Okay, Lori.
Well, what that says to me is that he just didn't have a very strong character. That he sort of went with whichever way the wind blows.
Well, you know what? And I'll leave it on this. When we read about him struggling with the angel, there is a very interesting midrash that he's struggling with his dark side and his good side. Struggling with his own negative qualities. So, as we all do, so may all of your positive qualities prevail And Shabbat Shalom this week.
Shabbat Shalom,
See you next
everybody.
time.
Shalom.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
See you in
everybody.
2
Thank
weeks.
you.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. See
Be
you
happy
later.
and healthy.
You too.